I sat in my office on the 45th floor of Counterattack, the building that bore my name. The glass wall stretched from floor to ceiling, offering a panoramic view of the city sprawled beneath me like a glittering tapestry. It was late evening, and the skyline shimmered with artificial light, neon signs flickering, headlights streaming along the streets below. This place was my kingdom, my hard-earned empire built from nothing but grit, sleepless nights, and relentless ambition. Just last week, I had made the cover of Forbes, from abandoned child to tech billionaire. But behind every success story lies a shadow and untold pain that refuses to fade. For me, it was the memory of Margaret, the woman who gave birth to me but never loved me, and Daniel, the brother who tormented me. Their faces haunted my dreams, though I hadn't seen them in over 15 years. Not since the day they cast me out like trash, leaving me with nothing but a crumpled $50 bill and a lifetime of scars. My desk was cluttered with papers detailing our latest project, a revolutionary AI system, designed to revolutionize healthcare. It was supposed to be my legacy, something that would define not just my career but humanity's future. Yet, as I leaned back in my leather chair staring at the glowing screen of my laptop, none of that mattered anymore. Because right there, blinking innocuously in my inbox, was an email. No subject line, no sender name, just a single attachment. My finger hovered over the mouse, trembling slightly before I clicked. A photograph appeared, a grainy, faded image that sent a jolt through my chest so sharp I thought I might collapse. It was me, 10 years old, standing between Margaret and Daniel. The picture was old, yellowed at the edges, but unmistakably real. I could see the scuffed sneakers I wore that day, the too big hand-me-down sweater Daniel had discarded. And then there was Margaret, her thin lips pressed into a grimace, eyes vacant, as if she couldn't bear to look at us. Daniel stood beside her, smirking, his arm slung lazily over my shoulder, a gesture meant to mock rather than comfort. The room seemed to shrink around me. My heart pounded like a war drum, each beat echoing louder than the last. 15 years. 15 damn years I'd spent burying those memories deep inside, locking them away where no one, not even I, could reach them. But now, here they were, staring back at me from the cold glow of my monitor. Something caught my eye, a faint mark in the corner of the photo, barely noticeable unless you look closely. It wasn't part of the original image, it was something added later. A small red circle, drawn clumsily, encircling the three of us. Beneath it, someone had scrawled two words in jagged handwriting. Remember this. My throat tightened. Who the hell had sent this? What did they want? Was it Margaret? Daniel? Or someone else entirely? Before I could process what I was seeing, another notification popped up. The email had updated itself, or rather, someone had remotely triggered a new message to appear. We need to talk, son. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Son. That word, spoken by Margaret only when she needed something, dripped with manipulation and disdain. It wasn't affection, it was a weapon. I gripped the edge of my desk, knuckles white, my mind racing. Why now? After all these years? Why were they reaching out? And what did they expect from me? Forgiveness? Money? Loyalty? Whatever it was, I knew one thing for certain: they weren't doing it out of love. In the corner of the room, resting on a shelf, was a small wooden box. Its surface was scratched, its lock rusted from disuse. Inside were the remnants of my childhood, the few things I'd managed to salvage before walking away from that toxic house forever. I hadn't opened it since the day I left, but tonight, it seemed to call to me, whispering secrets I wasn't ready to face. As the city lights blurred outside my window, I realized this wasn't just about the past anymore. Someone was trying to drag me back into a world I'd fought so hard to escape. And whatever their intentions, I knew one thing for sure: they weren't going to let me go without a fight. The email haunted me that night. The photograph, the red circle, the words, we need to talk. Son, they replayed in my mind like a broken record. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a random message from the past. Someone wanted something from me, and they were willing to dig up old wounds to get it. By morning, I had made my decision. If Margaret and Daniel wanted to meet, fine. But I wasn't going into this blind. I chose a quiet cafe on the outskirts of the city, a place where no one would recognize me. It was neutral ground, far enough from both my world and theirs. Rachel, my trusted assistant, insisted on coming along. She parked her car a block away, binoculars in hand, ready to intervene if things went south. When I walked into the cafe, they were already there. Margaret sat hunched over a cup of coffee, her once vibrant hair now streaked with gray. Her hands trembled as she clutched the mug, and her eyes were bloodshot, as though she hadn't slept in days. Daniel, on the other hand, looked exactly the same, arrogant, entitled, and smug. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, watching me approach with an unreadable expression. Ethan, Margaret whispered, standing abruptly. Her voice cracked, thick with emotion. I've been looking for you for so long. Are you doing well? Her words hung in the air, fragile and hollow. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then Daniel spoke, his tone cutting through the tension like a knife. You're running a billion-dollar company now, huh? Guess you haven't forgotten your big brother. His smirk ignited a fire in my chest, burning away any lingering sympathy. I stared at them, my jaw tightening. The memories came flooding back, unbidden and unwelcome. Flashback, 15 years ago. I stood in the doorway of our crumbling house, suitcase in hand. Margaret screamed at me, her face twisted with rage. You're nothing but a burden. I don't need you anymore. Daniel laughed, tossing a crumpled $50 bill at my feet. Get out and survive on your own. Present, I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Why are you here? I asked, my voice cold and steady. Margaret hesitated, glancing nervously at Daniel before pulling a folded piece of paper from her purse. She slid it across the table toward me. This is why, she said softly. I unfolded it, scanning the contents. It was a demand for $10 million. Compensation, they called it. Payment for raising me, for giving me life. My laugh startled the few patrons nearby, sharp and bitter. You think I'm stupid? I said, slamming the paper down on the table. This isn't about gratitude. What do you really want? Daniel leaned forward, his smirk widening. Come on, Ethan. You owe us. All those years we put up with you. Do you have any idea what that cost us? That's rich. Coming from the guy who threw me out with $50, I shot back. And let's not forget who called me a burden. Margaret flinched, tears streaming down her face. Please, Ethan. We're desperate. We're drowning in debt, and if we don't pay it off soon. Her voice trailed off, but the implication was clear. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just about them, it was about someone else pulling their strings. Owen Blackwell. The name surfaced in my mind like a warning bell. A shadowy figure I'd crossed paths with years ago. Someone who didn't take rejection lightly. I'll say it one more time, I said, standing up. I don't owe you anything. Whatever mess you're in, fix it yourselves. As I turned to leave, Daniel called after me, his voice dripping with venom. You'll regret this, Ethan. Don't say I didn't warn you. Outside, Rachel met me halfway to the car. Her face was pale, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. They're trouble, Ethan, she said. I heard them talking while you were inside. They mentioned someone named Owen. Does that mean anything to you? It meant everything. I left the cafe with a bitter taste in my mouth, but I knew I'd made the right decision. Margaret and Daniel weren't here out of love or regret, they were pawns in someone else's game. That much was clear. But what I didn't anticipate was how quickly the fallout would come crashing down on me. By the next morning, the headlines were everywhere. Billionaire CEO Ethan Carter abandons his own mother, screamed one tabloid. Another read, from rags to riches, now to ruthlessness, Ethan Carter's shocking betrayal. The media had painted me as a heartless monster, a man who turned his back on the woman who raised him. It was absurd, infuriating, and entirely calculated. At the office, chaos reigned. Employees whispered behind closed doors, their eyes darting toward my corner suite whenever I walked by. Our stock price plummeted overnight, losing nearly 20% of its value. Investors called demanding answers. Reporters camped outside the building, shoving microphones into the faces of anyone leaving the premises. Rachel found me pacing in my office, staring at the city skyline through the glass wall. It's worse than we thought, she said, handing me a stack of printed articles. They're hitting us from every angle: social media, news outlets, even blogs. Someone is orchestrating this. Who? I asked, though deep down, I already suspected the answer. Owen Blackwell, Rachel replied grimly. I dug into Margaret and Daniel's financial records. They owe him millions, and it looks like he's using them to get to you. Her words confirmed my worst fears. Owen Blackwell wasn't just some shadowy figure from my past, he was a predator. A master manipulator who thrived on control and destruction. Years ago, he'd approached me with an offer to invest in one of his projects, a scheme that smelled fishy from the start. When I refused, he didn't take it well. He made threats, subtle but unmistakable, before disappearing from my radar. Now, it seemed, he was back for revenge. But there was more. Rachel hesitated, her fingers gripping the edge of my desk. Margaret, she sold the family home years ago to fund her gambling addiction. She lost everything and then some. That's when Owen stepped in. He loaned her money, but with interest rates so high, they'll never be able to pay him back. I clenched my fists, anger simmering beneath my skin. So that's what this was about. Owen wasn't just after money, he wanted to destroy me, to tear apart everything I'd worked for. And he was using my own family as weapons against me. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a new text message. It was from Daniel. If you don't cooperate, don't blame me for being ruthless. The threat hung heavy in the air, but I refused to let it rattle me. Instead, I turned to Rachel. We need leverage, I said. Find out everything you can about Owen, his operations, his weaknesses, anything we can use against him. Rachel nodded, already pulling up files on her laptop. There's something else, she added cautiously. Mark reached out earlier. He says he wants to help. Mark, my former business partner, the man who once stood by my side during the early days of Counterattack. We parted ways under less than friendly circumstances, and I hadn't heard from him since. Why now? I don't trust him, I admitted. Not completely. Keep an eye on him, but don't let him know we're onto him. Over the next few days, the pressure mounted. Anonymous calls began flooding my personal line late at night. A distorted voice warned me to play nice if I knew what was good for me. Social media erupted with hashtags like ungrateful CEO and shame on Ethan Carter. Even loyal clients started questioning their partnerships with Counterattack. Through it all, Rachel remained my anchor. She spent hours combing through data, piecing together Owen's empire. Late one evening, she burst into my office, her face pale but triumphant. I found something, she said, sliding a folder across my desk. Inside were bank statements, emails, and transaction records, all pointing to a single offshore account linked to Owen. He's laundering money, Rachel explained. And not just small amounts. This is big. If we expose him, we could bring him down. I finished, a spark of hope igniting within me. But our victory was short-lived. As I scrolled through the documents, another text came through from Daniel again. Owen's running out of patience. Decide soon, or things will get ugly. Ugly. The word sent a chill down my spine. Whatever Owen had planned, it wouldn't stop at ruining my reputation or bankrupting my company. No, this was personal. And I knew I couldn't afford to wait any longer. Rachel's discovery about Owen Blackwell wasn't just a revelation, it was a missing piece of the puzzle. As she laid out the evidence in front of me, I couldn't help but feel a mix of dread and clarity. Owen wasn't just some loan shark or shady financier. He was a predator, feeding on desperation and chaos. And now, he had set his sights on me. I remember the first time we met years ago, when Counterattack was still a fledgling startup. Owen had approached me with a proposition: invest in one of his offshore projects, something he claimed would revolutionize global trade. But there was something off about him. His cold, calculating eyes, the way he smiled like he already knew he owned you. I turned him down, politely but firmly. That smile disappeared, replaced by a look that promised retribution. Now, it seemed, he was making good on that promise. Through Rachel's digging, we uncovered more than just Owen's money laundering operation. We found recordings of secret meetings between him, Daniel, and Margaret. One stood out, a tense exchange where Daniel pleaded for more time. Please, Daniel stammered, visibly sweating as he sat across from Owen in a dimly lit room. I need more time to handle this. Owen leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he smirked a cruel, predatory grin that sent chills down my spine even through the grainy footage. No, Owen said, his voice low and dangerous. I need you to destroy Ethan. Now. It was chilling to watch. Owen didn't care about Margaret or Daniel. They were pawns, expendable tools in his grand scheme. And I was the target. But Owen's plan didn't stop at financial ruin. He wanted to annihilate my reputation, to turn the world against me. And Margaret delivered the final blow herself. The news broke overnight. Ethan Carter leaves mother to die after a hospital accident. According to reports, Margaret had been rushed to the hospital after collapsing in her home. She claimed I refused to visit her, leaving her alone in her time of need. The public outcry was immediate and overwhelming. Social media exploded with outrage. Protesters gathered outside Counterattack headquarters, holding signs that read "Shame on Ethan, an ungrateful son." Inside the company, morale plummeted. Employees whispered behind closed doors, questioning whether they should stay loyal to a man accused of such cruelty. Investors pulled out en masse, costing us millions. For the first time in years, I felt truly powerless. But then, something unexpected happened. A nurse from the hospital, where Margaret was supposedly treated, reached out to us anonymously. She claimed Margaret hadn't suffered any accident at all, that she walked into the emergency room completely healthy, only to check herself in under false pretenses. Your mother is fine, the nurse said during our covert meeting. She's manipulating the situation. I don't know why, but she's lying. The revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. Margaret wasn't just desperate. She was willing to fake her own suffering to destroy me. Whatever debt she owed Owen must have been astronomical if she'd stooped this low. That night, I called an emergency meeting with my leadership team. The mood in the conference room was somber, everyone bracing for the worst. I stood at the head of the table, looking at their worried faces. I won't lie to you, I began, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. This is the toughest challenge Counterattack has ever faced. But I'm not going to let anyone, neither Owen Blackwell, nor my so-called family, take this company away from us. We're going to fight back. Together. The room erupted in murmurs of agreement. My team had always believed in me, and now, more than ever, I needed them to stand strong. After the meeting, Rachel and I retreated to my office. She spread out the documents detailing Owen's illegal activities across my desk. "This is our chance," she said, her eyes blazing with determination. "If we can get this evidence to the FBI, we can take him down. Expose him for who he really is." "But it won't be easy," I replied, staring at the files. "Owen's got connections everywhere. If he finds out we're onto him, we'll make sure he doesn't." Rachel interrupted firmly. "We'll leak the information anonymously. Let the authorities do the rest." As we finalized our plan, another text came through from Daniel again. "You've made your choice. Don't say I didn't warn you." His words hung heavy in the air, a chilling reminder of what was at stake. But I refused to back down. Owen thought he could break me, but he underestimated one thing: my resolve. The plan was set in motion. Rachel and I worked tirelessly through the night, compiling every piece of evidence we had on Owen Blackwell, his illegal offshore accounts, his money laundering schemes, and the web of lies he'd spun around my family. By dawn, the documents were ready to be sent anonymously to the FBI. It felt surreal, sitting there in my office as the sun rose over the city skyline. For years, I had carried the weight of my past, the betrayal, the pain, the unanswered questions. And now, finally, it was time to confront it head-on. Hours later, Rachel's phone buzzed with an alert. She glanced at the screen, her eyes widening. "They're moving in," she whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. I nodded, gripping the edge of my desk. This was at the moment of reckoning. At a secluded warehouse on the outskirts of the city, Margaret and Daniel were meeting with Owen to finalize their payment. They thought they were safe, untouchable behind Owen's shadowy empire. But they were wrong. The raid happened swiftly, almost too perfectly. FBI agents stormed the building, guns drawn, shouting orders. Owen barely had time to react before they cuffed him, his cold, calculating demeanor cracking under the weight of his impending arrest. He shot me a venomous glare when he realized who had exposed him. Daniel, however, lost all composure. As the agents dragged him away, he screamed, desperation laced in every word, "Ethan, save me." I stood there, watching from a distance, my lips curling into a smirk. 15 years ago, you said the same thing to me. Margaret didn't fight back. She collapsed onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably as the agents read her rights. Her greed had consumed her, turning her into someone unrecognizable, someone I no longer owed anything to. When it was over, I returned to my office, the city lights flickering below like stars scattered across the horizon. Rachel sat across from me, her expression thoughtful. "That's it?" she asked softly. "It's over." I leaned back in my chair, exhaling deeply for what felt like the first time in weeks. "No," I said, a faint smile tugging at my lips. "This is just the beginning." As the days passed, Counterattack began to recover. Investors slowly returned, reassured by the transparency we implemented after exposing Owen's crimes. The media narrative shifted from villainizing me to praising my resilience and determination to take down corruption. But this victory wasn't just about saving my company or clearing my name. It was about closure, about finally understanding why Margaret and Daniel had treated me the way they did. Their actions weren't driven by love or necessity, they were fueled by selfishness, greed, and fear. In the aftermath, I made a decision that would define the next chapter of my life. Using a portion of Counterattack's profits, I established a foundation dedicated to supporting children who had suffered abuse and neglect. It was my way of reclaiming the pain of my childhood, of ensuring that no one else would have to endure what I had. Rachel revealed something unexpected during one of her late-night strategy sessions. She confessed that she, too, had grown up in a toxic household, one where love was conditional and trust was shattered. "I used to think I'd never escape it," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But seeing how you handled everything, it gave me hope. You taught me that it's possible to forgive without forgetting, to move forward without letting the past define you." Her words touched me deeply. Over time, our bond grew stronger, not just as colleagues, but as friends who understood each other's struggles. Still, as I gazed out at the city one evening, a lingering question crossed my mind. Was this truly the end? Or was there more to uncover about my family, about the secrets they kept hidden for so long? A knock on my office door interrupted my thoughts. Standing there was a young woman, her resemblance to Margaret unmistakable. She introduced herself as Emily, my half-sister, a secret Margaret had buried for decades. "I know this is a lot to process," she said hesitantly, holding out an envelope. "But I think you deserve to know the truth." As I took the envelope, I couldn't help but feel a mix of apprehension and curiosity. The journey wasn't over, it was evolving. And for the first time in a long time, I welcomed whatever came next.